All right, thank you once again for tuning in. This is Breaking Free from the Fetter, which is the Willie Lynch letter, part 3. Breaking Free from the Fetter, which is the Willie Lynch letter, part 3. For more information regarding this lesson, please tune in to parts 1 and part 2. Please tune in to part 1 and part 2. Nevertheless, this is part 3, so here we go. I'm coming from the book of Judges, chapter 13, verses 1 through 5. And it reads as follows. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Most High. And the Most High delivered them into the hand of the Philistines 40 years. And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah. And his wife was barren and bare not. And the angel of the Most High appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold, now thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine, nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto the Most High from the womb. And he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Okay, so here in verses 1 through 5, an angel, a messenger of the Most High, tells this woman who is the wife of Manoah that she's going to have a son. Now, it doesn't mention anything about what to name the son. It just says she's going to have a son, and he's going to be a Nazarite from the womb. Okay, everybody with me? All right, let's move on. Let's drop down to verse 24. And the woman bare a son and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and the Most High blessed him. Okay. She bore a son, just as was promised, right? It was never told to give the child a name. It just said that she would bear a son, and she was given instructions not to, drink any strong drink or drink anything unclean. Eat anything unclean and everything like that. He would be a Nazarite from the womb, right? Okay, so it says she called his name Samson. Now, what's the name Samson mean in the Hebrew tongue? In the Hebrew tongue is Shemshon, which means sunlight. Okay, taken directly from the internet, direct information, as we very well know. Me being a man of color, right? In our communities, in black communities, the nickname sunshine for light-skinned individuals can have different meanings depending on the context and intent behind its use. But normally when somebody is called sunlight or sunshine in the black community is because they're light-skinned. They have a light-skinned complexion, all right? So bear with me. Now, let's go to the book of Judges, one chapter over, Judges chapter 14 and verse 5. It says, Then went Samson down, and his father and his mother to Timnath, and came to the vineyards of Timnath, and behold, a young lion roared against him. A young lion roared against who? Samson. Samson's of a certain age now. Right? He's not a little baby, he's not a little toddler, not a little kid, right? He's a man, okay? So it says a young lion, right? He's a young man. So a young lion, right, roars against him. Now, why do we have to highlight these three things? Number one, why was it a young lion? Why does the Bible make it clear it was a young lion? Number two, was it truly a lion? A lion as we know today, right? That big animal, right? With a mane, okay? Then number three, why did the lion roar? So let's dive in. Okay, young, according to the Hebrew tongue, is the Hebrew word kefir, which is a young lion covered with a mane. All right, so it's a young lion. As it said in the text, right? It's a young lion covered with a mane, okay? It says it's a lion. The word for lion, and I'm not lying, I'm not telling a lie. The word lion, right, for the animal is the Hebrew word aryeh. Aryeh is a lion, okay? Like the Lion King, like, you know, Mufasa and all them, Scar and all them, that's a lion, right? Male lions, okay? The lion roared against him, right? That's the Hebrew word sha'ach, which means to rumble or moan. So the lion roared and sha'agd, right? It rumbled and it moaned. It let out a roar, right? Okay, now let's break down what I put in parentheses, okay? Young lions do not roar before eating their prey. So this young lion did not come upon Samson and say, ooh, that's a good piece of meat right there. You're going to make a good meal, buddy boy. That wasn't it. Something else was going on. Because young lions do not roar before eating their prey. They hunt silently and roar after a successful kill to communicate with other lions, to claim their food or defend their territory. Okay, so obviously the lion didn't kill Samson. Samson killed the lion. But before Samson had a chance to put a hand on the lion, before the lion had a chance to think that he was going to kill Samson, right? The lion roared. The young lion roared. Okay, so roaring before an attack would alert prey and cause them to flee, leading to starvation. So this wasn't no dumb young lion. This is a young lion that had plenty of sense as a lion. It knew not to roar, right, before an attack, because that would alert Samson like, oh, I need to get out of here. I need to do something, right? So what set this lion off to roar? It wasn't because it saw a good meal in Samson. What set it off? Well, it was a young lion. So it was a lion covered with a mane. Let's lock that into our heads, right? It was a young lion and it was covered with a mane. All right. So let's go 2 chapters over. Let's go to the book of Judges, chapter 16, and let's start at verse 16. Okay, Judges 16 and 16, it says, and it came to pass when she pressed him daily, him being Samson, with her words and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death. So Samson had told her 3 times the secret of his strength. The secret of his strength, I must add, was not in his physical frame. Okay? If he was walking around like a prime Lee Haney, if anybody knows Lee Haney was a bodybuilder who beat Arnold Schwarzenegger out for the title for Mr. Olympia, right? He beat him out for the titles. He held more titles for Mr. Olympia than Arnold Schwarzenegger did, right? Look that up, look into that. I'm pretty sure that I was just giving that, you know, just from my memory, but if I'm correct, he beat out Arnold Schwarzenegger for winning Mr. Olympia. So if Samson was looking like Mr. Olympia, right, looking like Lee Haney, it'd have been obvious where his great strength lied. They couldn't figure out how this man is able to do these strength feats. The Philistines could not. So they agreed to pay Delilah for Delilah to find out where his great strength lieth, right? So that tells us something right there. Samson's physical body was not a threat to this lion either. And as we know, as we discussed, the lion did not see Samson as a big, easy meal. Something set this lion off to roar against Samson. We're about to find out, all right? So moving on, verse 17. Since his soul was vexed unto death, since Delilah kept on complaining and crying, you know, if you really love me, right? So in verse 17, that he told her all his heart and said unto her, there have not come a razor upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite unto Yah from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. So if he got a haircut, he will become weak and be like any other man. It doesn't say that once he got off the steroids, right? It doesn't say once he stopped working out at the local 24-hour fitness gym, obviously where he did not go to work out, okay? So it was something else about Samson's strength. He says if any razor comes upon his head, upon the 7 locks, right, that he would be like any other man. Okay, he doesn't say if he's prevented from doing his push-ups in the morning, anything like that, right? All right, verse 18. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up this once, for he hath showed me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and brought money in their hand. And she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man. And she calls him, not her, but she calls him to shave off the 7 locks of his head. And she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. Aha. Okay. Last verse, verse 20. And she said, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times before and shake myself. And he went not that the Most High was departed from him. He said, I will go out as other times and shake myself. Is he talking about shaking like twisting his hips? Is he talking about trembling like he's turning into the Incredible Hulk? Is he talking about growing in stature? What's he talking about? Okay, well, that word shake in the Hebrew tongue is the word na'ar, which is the idea of the rustling of a mane. Yes, like a lion's mane. How do we know? Because as it further says, which usually accompanies the lion's roar. Okay, the lion's roar. So the idea of the rustling of the mane. So what does this tell us? We know that Samson had 7 locks, right? No razor had ever come to his head. So that includes his face, right? So Samson had a beard that grew out, that connected unto his hair, connected into his mane. So his hair being fluffed out into 7 locks, almost like in an afro style, a bushy style, but 7 locks nonetheless, right? Connected to his beard, which gave him the appearance of a human lion. That's why the lion in Judges chapter 14, the young lion, that's why he roared against him. He noticed Samson's mane. Young lions, before they take over from another lion, the pride of another lion, and therefore they have all the females, they challenge another young lion, and they are moved by the size of the lion's mane. So they will attack that. This lion was not hungry and looking at Samson like, oh, big boy, you gonna be a good meal. Samson wasn't no big man like that. It doesn't say, according to the Bible, that he was a man of great stature. It doesn't say that, right? It says, Samson himself said, if any razor came upon his head, he would be like any other man, and his strength would go from him. He would be weak like any other man. It doesn't say he would lose his size. It says he would be like any other man if a razor came upon his mane. Yes, I said it, his mane. That's why when he was awoken that 4th time, when she said, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson, when he woke up out of his sleep, he said, okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just like I have done at other times. I'm going to rustle my mane, right? So I'm going to shake myself. I'm going to rustle my mane. What Samson would do is he would let out a roar as he shook his mane, because he saw himself as a human lion. Because when he displayed his strength by slaying a lion with his bare hands, right? That young lion that roared up against him. Now remember, Samson means Shimshon in Hebrew. That's what we normally call somebody of a lighter complexion, that's a person of color, right? So as you see right here, yes, I realize that's a picture of Bob Marley with locks, more than 7 locks, right? But I believe this is how Samson, a Danite from the tribe of Dan, I believe this was his appearance and complexion. He once again was a lighter skinned man, okay? A lighter skinned man, right? To where when the Spirit would come upon him, because he was in a covenant agreement with the Spirit before he even came out of his mother's womb, this is his appearance, and this is why he could display such strength. As we see and know, once his locks started to come back, he prayed to have his strength back. That strength was granted for one last feat of strength, which, resulted in him dying, but he died along with his enemies. And he killed more enemies when he died in his death than what he did when he was alive. All right? This is Shimshon, the Israelite judge who was slayed several thousands of Philistines. All right? But he was a man, an Israelite from the tribe of Dan of a lighter complexion. All right? You have heard it. Okay? Now, let's go on to another example. Let's go to just the opposite. Let's go to the book of Acts, chapter 13 and verse 1. Book of Acts 13 and 1 says, "Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul." Okay? So let's focus on this man, Simeon, that was called Niger, right? Okay? Now, Niger, as it's broken down in Greek, is the Greek, actually Latin word, Niger. Niger. Yes, it sounds just like nigger, right? Which in Latin, because it is, in Latin, it means black. So when they're describing this man, Simeon, who was called Niger, right? Which in Latin means black, it doesn't mean that the other men that were with him were not black, right? Because Lucius of Cyrene, that's in Africa. That was an African man, right? Not all Africans are dark-skinned. But this man, Simeon, whom they happen to call Niger, right? In Latin means black. This man, as you see up in the screen, wearing the white, has the white necklace around him and the white robe, he's extremely dark-skinned. He's extremely black. That's why they call Simeon what they call him. Not to identify that he was a man of color, but to identify that he was a man of color that was extremely dark-skinned. Extremely dark-skinned, as we see. But the brother is still handsome. I don't care what nobody says. Right? Right? I'm heterosexual, so I'm not saying I'm attracted to any man. But I'm saying, to me, in my opinion, which I'm entitled to, this very dark brother is very handsome. Got the white teeth to highlight his complexion, and he, the lighter clothes he's wearing really shows off his complexion. Right? That really looks good on him. That really fits him. Right? Okay. Now, as we see, there are two young men under this picture. Both of these young men are Egyptians. One is darker, one is like a medium brown, like a chocolate brown, right? But they're both Egyptians. So let's bear that in mind. So let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 2, and let's start in verse 9. Okay, Matthew 2 and 9. "When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. Now when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy." Now we know who was born, right? "And when they were coming to the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned of the Most High in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Most High appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt. And be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Most High by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. Out of Egypt have I called my son. Out of Egypt have I called my son. All right? Reading on. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceedingly wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, Jeremiah, right? Saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they are not. But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Most High appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. Joseph in Egypt. Joseph in Egypt. Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise, and take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which seek the young child's life. Okay? So they were called out of Egypt. Out of Egypt, right? In Egypt, we see young men who look just like this. All right? I know the Messiah was not yet quite of this age, right? I understand he was still young, right? In his toddler age, right? But they had young men, Egyptians, that look like this and still look like this today. All right? Today, they're of a lighter complexion, but that's subject for another teaching, another subject matter. All right? But there are young men then and now who still carry these complexions. Young men of color, right? Okay, so let's go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 8. Ezekiel, chapter 8. Ezekiel, chapter 8, verse 1. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, and the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house, and the elders of Judah sat before me, that the hand of the Most High Yah fell there upon me. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire. For the appearance of his loins even downward, right? So from his waist downward, fire. And from his loins even upward, his waist upward, as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. The color of amber. So amber here in the Hebrew is kashmal. Kashmal, which is bronze or polished spectrum metal. Let's highlight bronze. Okay, let's highlight bronze. Let's lock that into our minds. So let's go to the book of Numbers, chapter 21. Okay, the book of Numbers, chapter 21, starting at verse 1. And when King Arad, the Canaanite, which dwelt in the south, heard tell that Israel came by the way of the spies, then he fought against Israel and took some of them prisoners. And Israel vowed a vow unto the master and said, if thou wilt indeed deliver this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And the master hearkened to the voice of Israel and delivered up the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities. And he called the name of the place Hormah. And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom. The land of Edom, huh? And the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way. And the people spake against the Most High and against Moses. Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water. And our soul loatheth this light bread. And the Most High sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Most High and against thee. Pray unto the Most High that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people. And the Most High said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass. A serpent of brass, and put it upon a pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Okay, so Moses is instructed to make this serpent of brass, right? In the Hebrew tongue, brass is nechosheph, which is copper. Copper. All right? It's locked down into our minds. It's copper. Okay? Now we just heard about bronze. Now we're hearing about copper, right? So let's go to John chapter 3 and verse 14. So John 3 and 14 says, it's written in red so we know who's speaking. And he says, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. So here we have the Messiah making a comparison. Remember, as the serpent was lifted up, right? Remember it was on that brass, nechosheph, copper pole, right? So just as that copper, including the color of it, was lifted up, so must I be lifted up. So what are you talking about, man? Where are you trying to go? I know that's what somebody's probably saying. Where are you trying to go, right? Well, the Messiah spoke this in his own words, right? So let's see exactly why he would say that. So turn with me to the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation, chapter 1, starting at verse 10. Okay? The book of Revelation, chapter 1, starting at verse 10. Reads as follows. I was in the Spirit on the Master's day, and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book, and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and into Laodicea. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were like wool, like wool, as white as snow. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as of the sound of many waters. Okay? So, here we have 2 things. Okay, well actually we have 1 thing. Fine brass, we're going to focus on that. Fine brass, which is in the Greek tongue, kalku ib anon, which is whiteness or brilliancy, burnished copper, an alloy of copper. Okay, I'm going to read it one more. I'm going to say it one more time. Whiteness or brilliancy, burnished copper, an alloy of copper. Okay, so whiteness, it can't be whiteness and brilliant and copper at the same time. So evidently it's copper that's shining, it's dazzling. Remember we talked about that in part 2, dazzling. That's what it means by whiteness. Okay, can't be half of his feet were white and pale, the other half of the feet were copper colored, looked like burnished copper. That's not it. Okay, so let's go to Revelation 2 and 18. So this is the description of what John says, right? Okay, what he sees. So Revelation 2 and 18, as he's still talking to John and telling him to write down these things, in verse 2 and 18 he says, and unto the angel of the church in Thyatira write, these things saith the Son of the Most High, who have his eyes like unto a flame of fire, and his feet are like fine brass. So he speaks right back the description that John gave about him in chapter 1. Because he knew exactly what John's thoughts were. He seen the details, what John was looking at. John noticed, right, those eyes. He noticed his hair, but it's not mentioned, not repeated back here. But he notices his eyes as of a flame of fire, right? Somebody else can have a head full of white hair, but eyes like a flame of fire? No, you're not going to find that. And I don't care what nobody say. You can fight me this on all day. His eyes were not as a flame of fire from drinking wine. No, that's not it. Okay, that's not it. Okay, and he talks once again about his feet as fine, and his feet are like fine brass. It's written in red, so he says that in his own words, right? And there's that word again, kalhol ibanon, whiteness or brilliancy, burnished copper, burnished, an alloy of copper. Okay, burnish. What does burnished copper look like? Just like this right here. Okay, those are 2 cups, I realize, but this is what burnished copper looks like. See how it has that shine, it has that brilliancy? That's because of the time it had spent in the furnace, right? It wasn't just a fire lit to it, right? It actually burned in a furnace, okay? Why burned in a furnace? Well, let's see exactly what the internet has to say, and this is written in several books, right? People know what they're talking about. Coppersmiths, goldsmiths, silversmiths, they know what they're talking about, okay? That's their occupation, that's their livelihood. So they know what they're talking about when they say these things, right? So when subjected to the extreme heat of a furnace, copper will either melt or be refined, right? Depending on the furnace type and the intended process, okay? The material is a staple in metallurgy, where furnaces are used to extract, purify, and cast the metal. That's the key right there. Purify. Purify. That's why it was feet as if they burned in a furnace, right? Because he's so pure in his form. No darkness in him. He's complete light. Pure. Nobody else like him. Okay? That's why his feet were of that appearance. That's why he had the eyes as of a flame of fire. He can see through anything and everything. He is filled with that much power, right? He is the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. All right? Okay, so we see clearly what copper that has been burned in a furnace, not just by fire, but burned, purified in a furnace looks like right before us, right? Now let's go back to our last scripture. Let's go back to Deuteronomy, and we're going to close this out. All right? The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28. Chapter 28, and I'm going to read verses 64 through 68. All right? Starting at verse 64. And the Most High shall scatter thee among all people. So Israelites whom he was talking to, he wasn't talking to just any one tribe. He was talking to all the tribes, right? And he said, he shall scatter thee among all people. That's what it says in 64, right? I'm going to read it again. And the Most High shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. That's everywhere, right? Okay? And there thou shalt serve other gods, other aluas, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Certain religious practices we would adopt, right? Being scattered all across the world. We know what the wood represents. We know what the stone represents, right? Subject for another lesson for those who don't know. Verse 65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease. Among these nations of people that you're going to be scattered amongst, you will find no ease. That's how we know who we truly are. We're in different places all around the world, but wherever we're at, we should find no ease, right? We should not be any place with our feet kicked up, having a good old time. We should be in distress wherever we're at, historically, right? Up until the present day. Neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, But the Most High shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. As a people, I feel like I'm about to lose my mind. I feel like I done lost my mind. I feel like I'm going crazy out here. Wherever we're at, there's a reason for that, right? In thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would it be by the Most High were evening? And at evening thou shalt say, Would it be if it were the Most High were morning? For the fear of thy heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thy eyes which thou shalt see. Once again, it's feeling like you're on the brink of losing your mind. Doesn't say these people will be light-skinned. Doesn't say these people will be brown-skinned. Doesn't say these people will be dark-skinned or anything in between. It says these people which are Israelites, period. This is what they would be experiencing everywhere around the world. All right? Verse 68. And the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there shall you be sold, unto your enemies. Sold unto your enemies, which is exactly what happened to, we know what nations of people, different places around the world. They were sold into their enemies, right? Taken various places on slave ships, right? So when it says on verse 68, shall bring you into Egypt again with ships, that's just what it means, ships, cargo ships, which they would later rename slave ships, but they were originally cargo ships, right? You shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. That's the key word right there. No man shall buy you. That word buy in the Hebrew is the Hebrew word kana, which means to recover or to redeem, right? So let's break down what it means to recover. To recover, according to Webster, means to Webster's dictionary, return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength. No man would allow us to return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength. Why? Because this nation of people did not disobey man. They did not sin against man. They sinned against the Most High. So if you sin against the Most High, who's the only one that you can make it right with? The Most High. Repentance, right? Godly repentance, work of sorrow, right? Okay. To redeem, which means, according to Webster's dictionary, once again, to compensate for the faults or bad aspects of something. So no man can save us from what our ancestors, the ancestors of this nation of people, did. It was spoken prophetically right by the Most High what would happen to this nation of people that he had chose that are dear to him, right? That is the calling that he is calling with is irrevocable. It cannot be reversed. They're always going to be his people. Are there people that can be inclusive amongst his people? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Under the old covenant, they were proselyted in, right? Under the new covenant, right, they were grafted in, okay? However, back to these people, right? We see what would take place with these people because of their disobedience. They did not keep his commandments, his laws, his ordinances, his statutes, right? So, as a result, these people will be enslaved by another people and sold to various different people, right? Just about every nation of man, of people that you can name, were involved in what they call, I know some people say you shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it for those who don't know, the transatlantic slave trade. Just about every nation of people was involved in that, right? And what they did was, according to this Willie Lynch letter, right, they spoke curses on how to better control these people. Now, as I said in part 1, we don't know if that letter was actually written in 1712, if it was written before or after, if it's a forgery or whatever. But it's been put out there. So evidently somebody wrote it, somebody passed it on to other, what they call slave masters, and they used it. And what they used against us is still in effect today. Today, more than anything, right? That's why I have it highlighted here. From the Willie Lynch letter, where he said, you must use the dark-skinned slaves, these people they call slaves, which were not slaves, but Israelites that were made slaves, right? So you must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. Same thing that we are dealing with now, and now it's even more prominent. Even more prominent now, okay? I'm going to say this as a sidebar real quick. Somebody once said that with the complexion that I have, I definitely would have been a house Negro. I definitely would have been in the house with Massa, right? Okay, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. There's a reason why I have a lighter complexion, because of what, my family bloodline, right? I do realize my family tree, right? Okay, that might have been the case where I'm in the house with Massa. But since I have the soul that I have now, this is what I would have done back then. And I know somebody could say, yeah, brother, that's easier said than done. No, I know for a fact. I know who I am, right? And I know what I stand for. And I stand for my people, right? Despite the hate, the rejection that I've gotten from my own people, I still love my own people. I stand with my kind, right? So with me being in Massa's house, guess what I would have been doing behind Massa's back? I would have been teaching myself how to read, right? I would have also been listening in on all Massa's secrets. So once I learned how to read, and therefore I learned how to write, I'd have been right out there in those cabins, teaching my fellow man, my fellow woman, those of my nation. I would have been teaching them how to read and write. I would have been sharing the word with them, right? And I would have been trying to formulate an escape plan where we can all escape. Okay? I'm going to leave it right there. That part. All right? So, back to the Willie Lynch letter, part 2. Okay? The second part of the paragraph. It says, you must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. Same thing that's going on today, and it happens to do with complexion as well. I can't be, the dark-skinned woman. I can't be with no light-skinned man. Light-skinned men, they pretty boys. They think they all that. They can't do this. They can't do that. They are effeminate. They're delicate. I can't have no man like that. They weak. They soft, right? Light-skinned men, a lot of times in this present time, try to go above and beyond to prove ourselves. We don't got to prove a flip to nobody. We are who we are. But that's the battle that we have going on, right? And the dark-skinned men, yeah, we got all the light-skinned women because we just using them for our own benefit, right? We really don't want to be with them, but we just use them for our own benefit because we realize that they want to be with us because they turned on their own. They don't appreciate their own men who have a skin complexion similar to theirs, so therefore they would rather be with us. So that gives us an opportunity to just use them and abuse them. Then when we're done with them, we throw them back out there, and then don't nobody want them but the light-skinned men. Light-skinned man to take them because a light-skinned man to say, okay, at least I'm with a black woman. Yeah, she's had all these kids, been through all this with these dark-skinned men that have abused her and abused her, but at least I got a woman, at least I got a queen on my side now. That's nonsense, y'all. That's exactly what the Willie Lynch letter was talking about. Us coming against one another like that. And last but not least, I can't leave out the light-skinned men who do dog out the dark-skinned sisters. Not dogging them out by using them and abusing them, but talking about their dark complexion that, nah, you too black for me. Nah, I can't be with no female like that. I gotta be with me a light-skinned woman with light eyes and long hair going down her back. No, come on now, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. We got to stop doing one another like that. I went through so much bullying as a child because of my lighter complexion, because other people being jealous of that. So I had it times two. I had to deal with other nations, one nation in particular, a European nation, thinking that I was going to sell out because I'm of a lighter complexion and do their bidding against my own kind. I refused to do that. That made them upset, so they made things even harder for me. But then when it came to my own people, they wouldn't accept me because they felt that I wasn't black enough. They felt that with my lighter complexion, I had it easier, which really I had it much rougher. Y'all see where I'm going? We got to stop doing this to one another. Melanated is melanated, right? I don't care if you are of an African nation, if you are Hamite. Show some respect to the Israelite. Israelites, show some respect to the Hamite. Show some respect to the Japhite. Show some respect to the Edomite. Come on, y'all. But we got this within our own people, within our own nation. It's got to stop. This is the third and final part. I am out. Shalom.